Kendrick Lamar just leaked new footage confirming what a whole lot of people have been whispering about Drake for years. Lamar skipped that line during the halftime show, but he added a different line where he accused Drake of targeting young girls. That this man has a serious, documented, undeniable pattern of targeting young girls, not grown women, not adults, young girls. And Kendrick didn't just say it in a song. He didn't just hint at it in a bar, bury it in a double entendre, and let the internet figure it out. He put the footage out. He put the evidence out. He put the receipts on the table in front of the entire world. And then he performed it in front of 133 million people at the Super Bowl halftime show and stared directly into the camera and said the words, "Drake, I hear you like them young." That is not a metaphor. That is not a rap battle exaggeration. That is Kendrick Lamar looking the entire planet in the eye and making a specific claim about a specific man, a claim he has backed up with specific footage, specific lyrics, specific details, and a specific level of conviction that you do not have unless you know something the rest of us either haven't seen yet or have been too scared to say out loud. The footage Kendrick put into the Not Like Us music video is not new to the internet, but the way he packaged it, the way he framed it, the way he weaponizes a visual statement turned it from a rumor floating around social media into a cultural verdict. In the video, Kendrick mimics the exact hand gesture Drake used with a young girl in a documented concert clip. He stops his push-up count at 1717. The age of the girl Drake was caught on camera slow dancing with backstage. The girl he kissed on the cheeks and forehead while saying on a live microphone, "I had fun. I don't know if I should feel guilty or not, but I had fun. I like the way your breasts feel against my chest. I don't know if I should feel guilty or not, but I had fun. I like the way your breasts feel against my chest." That is on camera. That is documented. That is not a rumor. And Kendrick Lamar made sure you knew exactly what he was talking about by encoding the reference right into his video so that anyone who was paying attention couldn't miss it. The cover art for Not Like Us is a satellite image of Drake's Toronto mansion covered in red location pins, the kind of pins that appear on online maps of registered individuals who prey on children. Kendrick's fans went online after the song dropped and added those same pins to Drake's mansion on Google Maps, naming them things like certified kid lover, a minor, and child molester. That is the level of cultural consensus that built around this song. That is the weight of what Kendrick unleashed. And the reason it hit so hard is because it wasn't random. It wasn't manufactured. Snorts. It wasn't a desperate move from a man running out of bars. It was surgical. It was deliberate. It was built on a pattern of behavior that has existed in public view for years, that people had seen but not said, that was documented but not delivered until Kendrick Lamar decided it was time to deliver it. This video is going to walk you through the entire story. Every piece of footage, every lyric, every piece of evidence Kendrick brought to the table, every moment Drake fumbled his own defense so badly that he made himself look worse than the diss track did, every legal move Drake made to try to shut this down, and the moment a federal judge looked at his case and threw it in the trash. This story is still moving. This story is still developing, and you need to understand the full picture before the next chapter drops. Before Kendrick Lamar dropped a single diss track, before Meet the Grahams or Not Like Us existed, there was already a pattern attached to Drake's name that the internet had noticed, discussed, and documented. Kendrick didn't invent this narrative. He just put a spotlight on something that had already been sitting in the middle of the room. It started going public in 2017 and 2018, when Stranger Things actress Millie Bobby Brown, who was 13 years when she first met Drake, started talking about her friendship with the rapper in interviews. In September 2018 at the Emmy Awards, when Brown was 14 years old, he's honestly so fantastic and a great friend and a great role model. You know, we just texted each other the other day and he was like, "I miss you so much." I was like, "I miss you more." He's coming to Atlanta, so I'm definitely going to go and see him. I'm so excited. Yeah, you and Drake? That's awesome. That's awesome. What advice does he give you? Like, what does he say? Oh, about boys. He helps me. What? Yeah. He's great. He's wonderful. I love him. With boys, you know, that stays in the text messages. Laughter. She spoke openly about the fact that she and Drake texted each other regularly. She described him as a mentor, someone who gave her advice about boys and navigating Hollywood. On the surface, she framed it warmly. Publicly, Drake never denied it. The story sat there. People noticed. Writers published pieces with titles like, "We need to talk about Drake texting a 14-year-old Millie Bobby Brown." The conversation existed. It was documented and then it went quiet. It didn't stay quiet. In 2023, on his album For All the Dogs, Drake himself brought it back up, which is one of the most revealing things he has ever done. On the track Another Late Night, Drake rapped about people in his comments talking about denial or mature dismissal. His response was to threaten to send the severed finger to the mother of anyone who brought it up. He said, "Weirdos in my comments talking about some Millie Bobby look, bring them jokes up to the gang. We get to really flocking or send a finger to your mama in some FedEx boxes. Open up that SD. It's jaw-dropping, really shocking." That lyric received immediate backlash because nobody asked Drake to address that allegation unprompted on a studio album. Nobody made him go there. He chose to go there himself, and the way he chose to address it was with a violent threat rather than a simple denial. People noticed that, too. Then there was the concert footage. A video from a Denver concert in 2010 began circulating widely in 2019, and then again in 2024 during the beef. In that footage, Drake brings a female fan up on stage. He slow dances with her. He gets close. He puts his arms on her. He then pauses and asks the crowd and then the girl directly, "How old are you?" The girl answers, 17. Drake's response on a live microphone in front of a packed arena, "I can't go to jail. Yet, man, why do you look like that? You're thick. Look at all this." And then he continues to hold her. He continues to engage. He says on a live microphone, "I don't know if I should feel guilty or not, but I had fun. I like the way your breasts feel against my chest." And then he kisses her on the cheeks, on the forehead. The woman in the video, Tia Owens, came forward in 2024 when the clip resurfaced during the beef. Now 31 years old, she posted a statement saying it was nothing. That Drake's entourage had picked her from the crowd, not Drake himself. That her father had been at the concert with her, and that it was innocent. She said, "It was nothing then and it's nothing now." And that's her right. She gets to define her own experience. But here's what her statement does not do. It does not change what Drake said on that microphone. It does not change the fact that a grown man in his mid-20s said to a 17-year-old girl that he liked the way her breasts felt against his chest. It does not change the fact that he said the words, "I don't know if I should feel guilty," which is not a statement an innocent man makes. Innocent people don't wonder if they should feel guilty. They just don't feel guilty. That pattern, the Millie Bobby Brown friendship when she was 13 and 14, the concert footage with a 17-year-old, the proximity to young girls in public-facing settings was a foundation that was already poured before Kendrick Lamar laid a single brick on top of it. The Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef of 2024 had been building for years. There had been subtle jabs, coded references, tension simmering underneath collaborations and industry dynamics. Then in April 2024, Drake dropped push-ups, and what had been a cold war became a hot one. Kendrick responded. Drake escalated. And over the course of one historic weekend in May 2024, the two rappers released more diss tracks aimed at each other than most rap feud produced in their entire lifespan. On May 3rd, 2024, Kendrick Lamar released Meet the Grahams, and nothing about the beef was the same after that. The song is structured as a series of letters. Kendrick writes to Drake's son, Adonis. He writes to Drake's mother, Sandra. He writes to Drake's father, Dennis. And most devastatingly, he writes to an alleged secret daughter, an 11-year-old child that Kendrick claimed Drake had been hiding from the public, the same way he had hidden his son, Adonis, until rapper Pusha T forced that revelation in 2018. In his letter to the alleged hidden daughter, Kendrick rapped, "He's a narcissist, misogynist, living inside his songs, try to destroy families rather than taking care of his own. Should be teaching you timetables or watching Frozen with you, or at your 11th birthday singing poems with you." The verse spoke directly to an 11-year-old girl as if she were real, as if she were listening, as if she was somewhere out there wondering why her father didn't claim her. And then Kendrick went broader. He addressed Drake's entire crew, OVO, making a claim that would echo through the rest of the beef and eventually through a federal courtroom. He's got sex offenders on OVO that he keeps on a monthly allowance. He named Drake's entourage as complicit. He called Drake a predator. He rapped, We got to raise our daughters knowing there's predators like him lurking. I'm looking to shoot through any pervert that lives, keep the family safe. Meet the Grams was not a hype track. It was not a club banger. It was a cold, deliberate indictment written as personal correspondence designed to feel intimate and devastating, targeted at everything Drake held close, and it worked. Within hours, the internet was completely consumed by it. Within a day, Kendrick followed it with Not Like Us. Not Like Us dropped on May 4th, 2024. It was less than 20 hours after Meet the Grams. And where Meet the Grams was a slow, deliberate knife to the chest, Not Like Us was a firework. Produced primarily by Mustard, it was a West Coast HYPHY record with a bass line that hit like a heartbeat, strings that felt cinematic, and lyrics that hit like a freight train. The song opens with a line, "Mustard on the beat, ho." And then Kendrick goes in. He calls Drake and his associates what he called them plainly, directly, without flinching. He used the word certified and a specific term for people who prey on children right in the record. He doesn't bury it. He doesn't code it. He says it. And then he delivers one of the most analyzed lines in modern hip-hop. Trying to strike a chord, and it's probably a minor. On the surface, a minor is a musical chord, the kind that sounds melancholy, serious, heavy, but spoken aloud, a minor is also a minor, an underage person. It is deliberate. It is Kendrick Lamar coding a damning accusation inside a piece of wordplay so they can live on radio, on streaming platforms, in arenas, and still carry the full weight of what he's saying. The song also contained the line, "To any that talk to him and they in love, just make sure you hide your little sister from him. Not your girlfriend, your little sister." Kendrick is not talking about adults. He is specifically, precisely, deliberately talking about children, about sisters, about daughters, about the youngest and most vulnerable people in a woman's life. And then the music video dropped on July 4th, 2024, American Independence Day, and it became a visual manifesto. The cover art alone was a statement, a satellite image of Drake's Toronto mansion with 13 red location pins scattered across the roof, mimicking the way Predator's addresses are marked on public safety maps. Kendrick's fans immediately went to Google Maps and added those pins for real, labeling Drake's home with names that made clear exactly what the song was accusing him of. The video itself showed Kendrick in a mock prison cell doing push-ups, a reference to Drake's earlier diss, push-ups, but stopping at 17. 17 push-ups, the age of the girl from the concert footage. In the video, Kendrick also mimics the exact hand gesture Drake made with that girl on stage. He recreates it. He codes it. He makes you see it. Anyone who had seen that concert clip knew exactly what Kendrick was pointing at. Not Like Us became the biggest rap song of 2024. It became the biggest rap diss track in modern history. It debuted at number 1. It was played at Kendrick's pop-out concert in Compton on Juneteenth, where he performed it 5 times in a row to a crowd of thousands, and it swept the 67 Grammy Awards, winning Record of the Year, Song of the Year, Best Rap Performance, Best Rap Song, and Best Music Video. 5 nominations, 5 wins, making it one of the most decorated songs in Grammy history. If the release of Not Like Us was a verdict, the Super Bowl 59 halftime show on February 9th, 2025, was the public sentencing. Kendrick Lamar headlined what became the most-watched Super Bowl halftime show in history, with over 133.5 million viewers, and he performed Not Like Us. Not just performed it, he looked directly into the camera when he rapped the line, "Say, Drake, I hear you like them young." And he smiled. He looked into the lens, and he smiled, and 133 million people watched him do it. During one interlude, he told the crowd, "I want to perform their favorite song, but you know they love to sue." He was referencing the lawsuit Drake had already filed against his label, and then he launched into Not Like Us Anyway. The word in the lyrics, the specific term for what Kendrick was accusing Drake of, was censored by the broadcast, but the audience in the stadium didn't need the broadcast. They screamed every single word. The entire stadium shouted, trying to strike a chord, and it's probably a minor, back at Kendrick in unison. 133 million people heard it with a censor. The stadium heard it without one. Serena Williams appeared as a dancer during performance, doing a walk. Williams, who is from Compton, the same city as Kendrick, and who shares the song's cultural geography. 2 of Drake's exes were also brought to the stage. The performance was a complete, comprehensive, layered statement. Every element of it was intentional. None of it was accidental. Drake, who had already filed a defamation lawsuit in January 2025, responded to the Super Bowl performance by updating his lawsuit to include it, claiming the performance was designed to assassinate the character of another artist. He called it defamatory. He called it dangerous. His legal team argued it was a targeted attack designed to destroy him in front of the largest television audience of the year. Drake filed his lawsuit against Universal Music Group in January 2025. He did not sue Kendrick Lamar. He sued the label, his own label, the same company that represents both him and Kendrick through different divisions. His legal team argued that UMG had put corporate greed over the safety and well-being of its artists by releasing, promoting, and monetizing Not Like Us, which Drake's lawyers described as conveying the specific, unmistakable, and false factual allegation that Drake is a criminal pedophile. He also accused UMG of conspiring with Spotify to artificially inflate the song's streaming numbers, claiming that bots and pay-to-play schemes had been used to push the track to the top of the charts rather than organic popularity. UMG fired back hard. The label filed a motion to dismiss, calling the lawsuit no more than Drake's attempt to save face for his unsuccessful rap battle. They argued that Drake had intentionally and successfully used UMG to distribute his music and poetry to engage in conventionally outrageous back-and-forth rap battles and was now trying to weaponize the legal process to silence an artist's creative expression. In other words, you chose this arena. You chose to play in the rap beef space where hyperbole and exaggeration are the currency. Now you want to go to federal court because someone out-hyperbolated you. That's not how this works. But here's where Drake's own defense became one of the most damaging things that happened to him in the entire saga. In his response track, The Heart Part 6, released on May 5, 2024, one day after Not Like Us, Drake went out of his way to address the Millie Bobby Brown allegations. Remember, Kendrick never mentioned Millie Bobby Brown by name in any of his diss tracks, not once. Kendrick talked about minors. Kendrick talked about young girls. Kendrick talked about patterns of predatory behavior. He never said Millie Bobby Brown's name, but Drake in his response specifically rapped, "Only with Whitney's, not Millie Bobby Brown's. I'd never look twice at no teenager." He volunteered her name. He brought her name into a song about allegations of targeting minors without being up immediately. If you're innocent, why are you bringing up the specific person you need to be innocent around? Why does your denial include the name of a girl who was 13 when you first met her unless you already knew that's where people's minds were going? Drake also tried to argue that the secret daughter Kendrick mentioned was fake, claiming he and his team had deliberately fed Kendrick false information to make him look bad. "We plotted for a week and then we fed you the information, a daughter that's 11 years old. I bet he takes it." Drake rapped. His argument was that Kendrick was so eager to diss him that he didn't verify his facts and ran with misinformation Drake had planted. Maybe that's true about the daughter. Maybe the secret child claim was based on bad information. But here's a problem with that defense. It only covered one piece of the accusation. It said nothing about the concert footage. It said nothing about Millie Bobby Brown. It said nothing about the sex offenders allegedly on the OVO payroll. It said nothing about the hand gesture in the video or the push-up count stopping at 17 or the satellite image of Drake's mansion with Predator. Map pins all over it. The planted information defense addressed one claim out of a stack of claims, and in doing so it left everything else standing unchallenged. On October 9, 2025, U.S. District Judge Janet Vargas dismissed Drake's defamation lawsuit against UMG. The ruling was comprehensive. Judge Vargas wrote that a judge today dismissed Drake's lawsuit against Universal Music Group over Kendrick Lamar's Grammy-winning hit, Not Like Us. The lawsuit alleged UMG published a track on rival Lamar's diss record. The issue in this case is whether Not Like Us can reasonably be understood to convey as a factual matter that Drake is a pedophile or that he is engaged in sexual relations with minors. Her answer, it cannot, not because the claims are true or false, but because the context of a rap diss track makes a non-actionable opinion under the First Amendment. The court held that even accusations of criminal behavior are not actionable if understood in context. They are opinion rather than fact. The judge noted that the fact that the recording was made in the midst of a rap battle is essential to assessing its impact on a reasonable listener. In plain terms, everyone who heard Not Like Us understood they were listening to a rap battle, not a news report. Therefore, it cannot be defamation. Drake appealed the dismissal in January 2026. His lawyers argued to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals that the district court had created a dangerous categorical rule that rap diss tracks can never be actionable. UMG responded, arguing that Drake seeks to strip words from their context and deem them actionable defamation. Two amicus briefs were filed backing UMG. One from Yale Law School's Floyd Abrams Institute for Freedom of Expression, one from a group of legal scholars and social scientists. As of now, the appeal is active. The case is still moving, but the legal system has already delivered one verdict. At the trial court level, what Kendrick said about Drake is protected speech. The most telling thing about Drake's reaction to all of this is not what he said, it's what he didn't say. And it's what he couldn't stop himself from saying when he wasn't supposed to. He couldn't stop himself from mentioning Millie Bobby Brown unprompted. He couldn't stop himself from responding to the Millie Bobby Brown allegations in a 2023 album track, a full year before the Kendrick beef, with a violent threat instead of a denial. He couldn't stop himself from making a public record via lawsuit that he viewed the specific accusation of being a predator toward minors as something that required 12 months of federal litigation to address, as if the strength of his response would somehow retroactively diminish the weight of the accusation. He also couldn't stop himself from making the lawsuit about the one thing that couldn't help him, the genre context. By filing a defamation suit over a diss track, Drake invited a federal court to analyze the norms of hip-hop, the conventions of rap beef, and what a reasonable listener would understand from a diss track. And what the court found was what anyone who has spent 5 minutes in hip-hop culture already knew. People don't listen to diss tracks to get factual information. They listen to them to hear one rapper embarrass another. The court said that out loud in a legal ruling in the Southern District of New York opinion that will be cited in music law cases for decades. Drake funded that ruling with his own lawsuit. And there's also the question of what the lawsuit accomplished in the court of public opinion. Before the lawsuit, Not Like Us had already won 5 Grammys. Before the lawsuit, it had already been performed at the Super Bowl. Before the lawsuit, it had already become the best-selling rap record of 2024. By filing the lawsuit, Drake kept the conversation live. Judges decided to dismiss the lawsuit, the defamation lawsuit against Universal Music Group, that he has over Not Like Us. Every court filing was a news cycle. Every motion was a headline. Every time his lawyer submitted a brief arguing that the song was defamatory because it called him a predator toward children, that argument had to describe in legal language what the song said, which meant every news outlet covering the lawsuit had to report again what the song said. Drake's legal strategy functionally gave Not Like Us a second, third, and fourth viral moment via legal filings. As of May 2026, the Drake vs. Kendrick Lamar saga is not over. It has entered a new phase. Drake's appeal of the defamation dismissal is pending at the Second Circuit. His lawyers are arguing the lower court made reversible error. UMG is arguing the case should stay dismissed. Two of the most prestigious free speech legal institutions in the country have filed briefs backing UMG. The outcome of that appeal will have significant implications not just for hip-hop, but for music law broadly. It will define the legal boundaries of what can and cannot be said in a diss track without triggering liability. On the music side, Drake released a new song in July 2025 called What Did I Miss?, which many read as an attempt to track was met with mixed reception. He followed that with a tour of Australia. For anybody that's watching from Australia, I'm coming back to Australia the first time in 8 years. Coming back to Australia on tour. And New Zealand in 2025 named after a gambling-inspired alter ego. In May 2026, a track called 1am in Albany leaked, on which Drake appears to reignite his beef with Kendrick, take shots at LeBron James, and target J. Cole. The same J. Cole who had previously been part of a collaborative response to Kendrick before stepping back from the beef. A full studio album called Iceman is also being discussed. Kendrick, by contrast, spent 2025 on a grand national tour that ran from April through October, performing Not Like Us at every show to crowds that knew every word. He performed it at the Super Bowl in February 2025. He won 5 Grammys with it in February 2025. His label, Interscope, under UMG, went to federal court and had Drake's lawsuit thrown out. The numbers on Not Like Us crossed 1 billion streams on Spotify alone by January 2025. The song tied with the Fifth Dimension's Up, and Away as the most awarded song in Grammy history. Kendrick did not release a rebuttal album, a follow-up disc, or a legal counteraction. He didn't need to. The song did all of it. It would be easy to look at all of this and call it rap beef. Two rappers going at each other, throwing shots, seeing who blinks first. But what Kendrick Lamar did with Not Like Us, Meet the Grams, the music video, and the Super Bowl performance is something more than a rap battle. He used hip-hop as a tool to surface a pattern of behavior that had existed in public view, that had been documented, that had been noticed, and that had never fully been reckoned with because nobody powerful enough and talented enough had chosen to make it the center of the song. The concert footage from 2010 existed before Kendrick used it. The Millie Bobby Brown interviews existed before Kendrick referenced them. The hand gestures, the behavior, the pattern, all of it existed before Not Like Us, but it lived on the internet as disconnected pieces, dismissed as gossip, explained away as misunderstandings, minimized by the sheer size of Drake's fame and the loyalty of his fan base. Kendrick took those disconnected pieces and assembled them into a coherent indictment. He put them in a song with a bass line that made them undeniable. He put them in a video with visual coding that made them unforgettable. He performed them at the Super Bowl and made 133 million people witnesses. The federal judge who dismissed Drake's lawsuit wrote something important in her ruling. She noted that the cover art in the form of a satellite photograph of plaintiff's property with 13 location pins placed on it could not be read as establishing factual claims about Drake, because the context of a rap battle precludes literal interpretation. But what that observation also reveals is how comprehensive, how laid, and how intentional Kendrick's execution was. He didn't just write lyrics. He designed cover art. He constructed a music video with coded references. He performed it at the most-watched entertainment event in American television history. He built a case across multiple formats, sonic, visual, performative, and made it airtight enough that even a federal court had to engage with it seriously, even while ultimately ruling it protected speech. This is what it looks like when one of the most precise, detail-oriented, and lyrically intelligent rappers alive decides to direct his full attention at a target. This is not a beef. This is a prosecution. And right now the case is still open. There is still footage circulating. There are still conversations happening. There are still courts that haven't issued final rulings. There is still a Second Circuit appeal pending. There is still a Drake album on the way. And if that album takes a shot at Kendrick, the man who won 5 Grammys with a single response track, who performed his indictment at the Super Bowl in front of 133 million people who watched a federal judge throw out $1 billion lawsuit against his music, who hasn't needed to say a single public word in response to anything Drake has done since. If that album takes a shot at Kendrick, the rebuttal that comes back is going to be something people talk about for a very long time. The story is not over. The footage is out there. The pattern is documented. The Grammy plaques are on Kendrick's wall. And the question that everybody needs to sit with, the question that all of this evidence, all of this footage, all of these lyrics, all of these legal rulings, all of these Super Bowl moments point back to is why. Why would a man of Drake's stature and resources react to a song with this much aggression, this much money spent on lawyers, this much public energy, this much documented rage if the song was about nothing? Innocent men don't spend 18 months in federal court trying to silence a rap track. Innocent men don't mention names in their defense that nobody brought up in the accusation. Innocent men don't record threats toward people who ask questions about their relationships with young girls. The footage is there. The songs are there. The court documents are there. The Grammy record is there. Kendrick Lamar didn't just say it. He proved it. And everybody from the Staples Center to the Southern District of New York has had to respond to what he proved. Made it to the end of this video, you already know what the title means. Drop in the comments what you think happens next in this story, because I promise you it is not over.